Hi there. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Follow Your Passion podcast. I'm your host, Erwin Wils. I'm a mindset and business strategist and founder of Millionaire Life Strategy. In this podcast, I'm interviewing my clients and other entrepreneurs that are following their passion and make a good living out of it. When you want to know more about me or what I can do for you, check out my website, millionaireLifestrategy.com. But first, check out this episode of Follow Your Passion. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Follow Your Passion. Today, I have a special guest. Let me introduce him. He's Iain Miller. He's the founder of Unique Ascent. Iain is based in County Donegal in the Republic of Ireland. What he has done over the last 12 years is transform his near lifelong hobby into a highly successful business, doing exactly the same activities he did prior to going professional. He has taken a very niche aspect of outdoor rock climbing and created a globally unique business. That niche is sea-stack climbing. Iain is the world's only full-time professional sea-stack climber, and he's quite simply living the dream. He has been interviewed by Red Bull and Forbes, and I feel honored that Iain is in my show. Welcome, Iain.
Hi, man.
So, Iain, tell me about it. When did this passion of sea-stack climbing started?
Like most things, it's a progression. So in the outdoors, especially with mountaineering, you have trekking or hiking, which leads on to mountaineering, which leads on to technical rock climbing. And it's just a progression. So I started hill walking or trekking when I was about 10 with my parents. And then as soon as I got my driving license at 17, then I was off on my own then. So it's been a while.
Yeah. But sea-stack climbing is different than just outdoor climbing or rock climbing, right?
Well, sea-stack climbing involves an awful lot of aspects that you need to know. For example, you need to know how to navigate, you need to know about the sea, you need to know about rock climbing, and you put them all together and you climb the towers of rock that stick out the sea. Now, without one aspect, such as knowing about the sea, it's not going to end well for you. So it's a lot of things come together to make you proficient at it.
I can imagine that because it's not just landing on a beach, right? It's a sea stack, that a rock that actually rises from the sea. So there's no beach, no whatever to lay your boat, or you have to find the right position to enter the rock, so to speak.
Well, if you imagine a big sea cliff and it's facing northwest in Ireland, it's getting pounded by the North Atlantic drift, which is the prevailing tidal currents from the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. And as these cliffs get bashed by the big waves, air gets trapped in the cracks and bits pop off. So eventually you get peninsulas, then you get arches, and then the last thing that's left is a tower of rock. So they're in positions which are not designed for human access. You've got to work out how to get to the base of the cliff, how to get out to the stack and all. So it's a logistical challenge as well as a physical challenge if you get that.
Right. So it's not just kayaking towards a rock and climb, but it takes a very lot of preparation, I guess, as well.
An unclimbed when I find a stack that's unclimbed, or I'm going back to reclimb a stack, then I usually visit it with a view just to have a look at what's going on at its base. So I'd like to go and visit the stack when I think I could possibly get on it regarding the sea. And I go and visit and I just sit and watch, and I'm looking for how to do it. And then I come back now that I know a lot more about the situation or the location, and it's usually successful. So a lot of observations involved.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So I know from rock climbing, that you have those famous trails that already have, I'm probably not using the right professional words for it, but those anchors that you can secure yourself, right, for not falling down. But if you're going for a sea stack, I can imagine there are no anchors to secure yourself, especially if you climb it for the first time. So how do you do that?
So if I was to go to a sea stack that I strongly suspect's unclimbed, and I was to find anything to indicate somebody'd been there before me, I'd get emotional. That's not good.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of ways to do things. For example, getting to the top of a stack and there's nothing to use as an anchor, then I can do, for example, what's called partial the summit. So I wrap a rope right round the summit and I rappel off that rope. Or I can build a cairn, or I can hammer in stakes. You tend to sit and watch, and you make a decision as to what you think's going to be up there to get you back down, and you just take the right equipment.
Yeah.
If not, worst case scenario, you've got to down climb, and that's absolutely terrifying.
I can imagine that. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, if you're going up, you can see where you're going, but if you're climbing down, it's feet first, and that's more scary.
Awful.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. It's something you really don't want to do. So you make sure that when you leave home, you've got all the equipment and you make the right decisions before actually going onto the stack.
Yeah. And not only that, it's if you, I'm not sure what the average time is that you climb a rock, because every rock is different, of course. But if you, let's say you've climbed a rock for 4 or 5 hours and you've reached the top, and you're over the moon, so to speak, and you should climb down, it will probably take at least the same amount of time to climb down. So you don't want that, right?
No, definitely not. Your likelihood of falling off when you're climbing up, if you make the right decisions, is quite low. But on the same piece of rock, down climbing, your chances of falling off whilst doing that are much, much higher.
Yeah, I can imagine it. So how were you able to transform this hobby into a professional business?
The way any business works is you either step into an already defined market, or you create demand for your services. So for a long time now, especially with social media becoming free and available and the internet being used by more and more people, what I've been doing is simply recording what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything different, but I'm just taking my phone with me, taking a GoPro with me, and just getting bits and pieces. And you make what you're doing available to everybody. So to climb a sea stack, not all people can climb all sea stacks, but most people can climb some sea stacks, or most people can climb at least one or two. And it's a case of just making what you're doing and creating a market. And that's just what I've been doing over time. And it's actually, if you're out doing what it is you're doing and having an enormous amount of fun, you're creating a market anyway, because people are watching what you're doing and getting interested. And yeah, it's
nice.
You just do what you do, and people will gravitate to you.
Nice. So do you do guided climbs, or do you give instructions to other climbers that want to climb sea stacks? Or
about 9 months of my year is taking people out. So I take people out, for example, a woman in her 80s who has never done anything like this before, is reasonably fit and wants to do something that she'll remember for the rest of her days, as an example. And I do that for about 9 months of the year. And then for the other 3 or so months, I do instruction, but I don't generally teach people how to get onto sea stacks, because once you get enough knowledge to do something, then you can make a decision as to whether it's a good idea. But getting instruction to do something potentially quite dangerous doesn't give you the experience or the ability to make decisions. So I don't generally teach people sea stack climbing. I teach people rock climbing and leave it to them to gain the relevant experience to make their own decisions.
Nice. Because I think you could consider this like an extreme sport, right? It's a combination of things that makes it more dangerous than just normal rock climbing.
The ante is raised compared to perhaps standard rock climbing. But any activity in which the potential is a fatality is an extreme activity. Driving, walking, eating. It's just your likelihood with C-stack climbing is quite high that if you don't know what you're doing, you're either going to drown or you're going to fall off. So you've got a combination of things to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the reason I'm asking because Red Bull has also shown his interest in you because you've been interviewed by them, right?
Yeah. It's an unusual activity in which very, very few people are doing. And the main reason why so few people are doing C-stack climbing is because C-stacks only really exist in very few places on Earth. And Northwest Scotland, Northwest Ireland, and Southeast Tasmania are the three main places on Earth with abundance of C-stacks. And the three places are not massively populated. So
yeah,
they all live in beautiful places.
Yeah, I remember when I think it's almost 5 years ago. I went to Ireland for training, and during the weekend we visited the cliffs of Moher, and they're really impressive. And of course, you're only standing on top of it, right? If you visit the cliffs of Moher, but I can imagine if you're in your kayak on sea and you see such rock rising from the sea, it can be quite impressive as well.
It gives you a feeling that as a human, we're quite insignificant because when you're paddling below something at the cliffs of Moher, it's overwhelming because you're just so small. A bit like our planet in space. We're just a tiny speck surrounded by massive things all around us.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So it must have been a great feeling if you feel so insignificant, so humble against such a C-stack, and you've conquered it. You know, you're standing on top of it. Must be quite a great feeling as well.
I personally wouldn't use the word conquered. I would say that I was lucky to get on top of it. I did the right things. You never conquer it because if you come back tomorrow when the conditions are not right, you're going to die on it.
Yeah.
But when you're standing on top of the stack, you're feeling quite. You're not empty, but you're not focused on where you are. You're focused on where you want to be, and where you want to be is back at your van or back at the road. So you don't have any sort of celebration on top. You have a smile to yourself and then fix the abseil and carry on to get back down. Once you get off the stack and back onto relatively safe ground, then you get a feeling of euphoria, but not before. Nice
way of putting it, indeed. And it also shows that, you know, you see those people climbing rocks, and when they reach the top, you know, they're all celebrating. Yes, we've made it. But with C-stack climbing, you're just halfway, so to speak. You still have to get down and get back to shore again. So, and it takes. You still have to be focused. You know, you can't make any mistakes, like you said. So, very well put. So, what made you decide to climb your very first C-stack?
I was living in Orkney, which is the islands to the north of Scotland, and I'd almost finished what's called the Munros, which are all the Scottish hills above 3,000 feet. And I'd almost finished them. It'd taken me 15 or so years, and I just happened to come across one of the lesser known C-stacks in the Orkney Islands, and I thought to myself, maybe I could stand on top of that. And at that time, the internet wasn't big. There was no social media. You were still very much, emails weren't perhaps used by very many people or as much as they are now. So it was a case of going to the library and getting a book out. I don't know if you remember. It seems like a long time ago now, going to the library and getting a book. And that's how I started. So I got on top of that stack and realized that, yes, it had been climbed before, but the way I went up hadn't been climbed before. And that was it. The door was now fully open, and I can't close that door anymore.
Nice. So you mentioned, you know, the coast of Ireland, coast of
I was to be in Tassie a couple of years ago, but it never came to anything. But obviously Scotland and Ireland, yes, I've climbed nearly 150 different sea stacks at the moment. So
Oh wow,
I've been a few, yeah.
that has been a few indeed. So are you still planning to go to Tasmania to climb some sea stacks over there, or are those rocks different than the environment of Scotland and Ireland?
Oh no! Tasmania is at the moment it's on the what we call on the long finger, which means it's not top of the to-do list, but it's certainly prominent. At some point, yes, I will go across and have a long holiday down there, but not anytime soon.
Okay. So, are there certain circumstances you have to take into account? I can imagine not all rocks are the same, right? It's the same in the mountains. Some rocks are harder than other ones, or a different material. Are there things to consider when you're considering a rock climb or a sea stack climb?
Oh, the things to consider are almost infinite. You start off with, in general, is this a good idea? So that means having a look at the stack, looking at the quality of the rock, looking at anything at all that's insurmountable that you just cannot get by. And that might be like the rock quality might be so poor that it's just not going to end well. So the considerations are and they don't stop until you're back at your van having completed your day out.
Yeah.
There's a number of stacks that I won't climb. I know in Donegal of 6 quite large sea stacks that I just won't climb because I don't think it's going to end well. So,
well, but that shows that it's not only a passion; it's also using common sense as well, right?
Like everything we do in life, whether we realize it or not, we're always assessing risk, and if the risk outweighs any form of celebration, then really, what is the point? It's just not a good idea.
Exactly.
And don't get too excited about unclimbed sea stacks.
Yeah, as I remember it correctly from our pre-talk, you also have a son, right?
Yes.
Has he been caught by the virus of sea stack climbing as well, or is he still at rock climbing?
Well, I've got 2 sons. One's 24 and one's 8. Now the 24-year-old has got no interest in rock climbing. He's a computer guy. He spends a lot of time looking at screens. Whereas the 8-year-old, during lockdown there, I kind of became his big brother. So we spent a lot of time together. We still do. And he's become my trainee. So he's climbed 3 sea stacks so far, and he's done a lot of kayaking. So
wow.
Yeah. The trick with young children, though, is to keep them interested. It's very easy for them to lose interest. So we've taken Star Wars figures, we've taken Lego onto sea stacks just to keep things interesting.
Nice. But it's also, I think, not even keeping them interested, but it's also keeping them focused, because it's still a dangerous environment where you're climbing. So he also has to have focus and perseverance to keep on. It's not that you decide halfway, okay, Dad, it was fun, I'm going back again, watch television.
Yeah, I found with my son Luke that if I tell him all I know about what we're doing that day, what time we expect to be finished, how far we're going to kayak, how much climbing we're going to do, how big the abseil is, and tell him everything I know, then he just processes that information and he knows what's in store, and he doesn't lose focus until we've completed what I said we were going to do. It's
nice.
Young children are really good when it comes to just following what they're expecting to do.
That's marvelous. And do you, since you said, during lockdown, you've taken him along with you, do you see that there's an interest growing in him? So you didn't need, the last time you didn't need to take as many Star Wars figures as the first time, for instance?
What I found is that several times when I've walked into his room, he's been reading my climbing magazines from 20 years ago, or he's been on YouTube and watched climbing videos. So the seed has been planted. I just have to keep it. I just keep it watered, and it'll grow well.
Nice. So, I also saw that you said that the secret to success or the key to success to have a solid foundation and have very high skills in your field, actually. How do you keep your skills at a high level?
I've got a to-do list of things I would like to do, all regarding visiting places that I've not been in different sea stacks, mainly in Donegal, but a few in Ireland and certainly Tasmania. What I do on a week-by-week basis is I go out on my own and go climbing. I make plans and I fulfill them. Now, this might mean spending the day paddling 2 kilometers, doing a 2-pitch climb, abseiling off, all the while being totally and utterly alone in a location I've never been to before. So by doing, you're educating yourself. And I'm continually changing my procedures day to day to fulfill or fit the location that I'm in. So you never stop learning. It's when you stop doing, then the learning starts to get a bit rusty. But if you're having more fun than you can possibly imagine, week by week, why would you stop?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I remember that, and I can actually relate to that. When I was in my teenage years, I was doing competition judo, right? And I trained like 20 hours a week. Did almost every month I had a competition to go to, right? And then I went to study at university, and I didn't have that much time to do the competition, the matches again, and I just lost that touch, you know. When we were when I had a match, and at certain moments during that match, I thought, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that. And when I was still on a roll, you know, I just did it. I didn't think about it. I immediately did it. So when you lose that edge, so to speak, you know, it's better to stop at that moment. And that's when I actually stopped doing that. Well, that, and they adjusted the weight classes, and I didn't want to gain any more weight. So I just thought, okay, that's the right time for me to stop. But another thing, a very interesting thing that you mentioned is, and I think that's a pitfall for some of us, is you keep changing your procedures to keep you on your edge, because what you don't want, especially in your business, is to fall back in habits, right? If you've done something a few times and you've done it 5-6 times at the same way, then the 6th time you're feeling comfortable doing it exactly same time, and circumstances could have been changed. So changing your procedures or your way of attacking a rock, so to speak, it's actually helping you to keep you on your edge and to keep your sharp, right?
If you take the analogy that take my analogy, every single time I go out climbing, my only assumption for that day is today's the day that I'm going to die, then that is the only thing that I have as a certainty for my day out. And my job is to prevent it. So if you're not thinking along those lines, you are what you've just described as complacency. You've become complacent because you've revisited a place several times and it no longer holds any fear for you. And that is an incredibly dangerous mindset to have. If you assume, if I'm out with customers or clients to climb, if I'm not watching out for them with the fact that we're about to have a fatal accident, then there's no point me being there. I have no purpose. So it might sound negative to say that's what you're thinking when you go out climbing, but if you're not, you're not even trying. You're not paying attention.
Exactly. Yeah, it sounds horrible, but it's a great mindset or reminder, actually, that what you're doing, right? I guess if I'm also a very big fan of Formula One, especially we got a certain Dutchman that's doing great in it, right? But I can imagine that they've driven the circuit like numerous times, right? Both real time as in the simulator, and I guess they have like a similar mindset, you know. If they get in the car, they can kill themselves. If they're driving like 200 miles per hour and they cross into a wall, it could kill them. So they have to keep sharp. They have to keep focused. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to getting in the car as well.
Well, with regards to Formula One, the track might not change, but where you are and compared to other people most definitely does. So even though you know the track like the back of your hand, you don't know where other people are going to be at any given time.
Exactly.
So that keeps you sharp.
Yeah, and the weather changes, you know, the temperature changes, the tires can even be different every race.
Yeah.
So you have to keep sharp. You have to be focused and just give it your best.
And that's all you can do. Being aware of what potential circumstances, how they're going to develop in the next 5 minutes, the next 20 minutes, or the next hour is all down to experience. Having seen something before, you can make a really good guesstimation as to how this is going to pan out.
Yeah. You already mentioned, Jean, that you've climbed numerous sea stacks. Is there one experience that stands above all ones that you can remember?
There's been lots of different experiences that have shaped how I do things now.
Mm-hmm.
One in particular, I was doing the first ascent of a sea stack called the Anbudgel or the Bottle, and I decided not to free solo it. I was going to rope solo it. So I set my rope up and I set off up the sea stack. Now the sea stack's about 50 maybe 60 meters high, 180 feet,
Mm-hmm.
and it sits 300 meters from land, and it's shaped like a wine bottle. So as I climbed up the first pitch, I fell off. But I fell off into the sea, and at the base of Anbudgel, there's conflicting tides. So I ended up in white water, but I ended up upside down, still attached to my rope back to an anchor. And as I span round and round in this random pool of water at the base of the cliff, I realized that it was only a matter of time before I was going to have to breathe out because I wasn't getting out of this. So I pulled on the rope because it grabbed my leg. It wrapped around my leg like a tourniquet. And as I pulled on it, it pulled me out of the white water. And for a fleeting second, I seen a little person on the base of the stack standing next to my boat. And it was a girl about 6 years old. And then I went under the waves and disappeared again. And when I came back out the waves and pulled myself to my boat, obviously the wee girl was gone. It was just from my head. Now, somebody told me later on that didn't know that story that I'd met somebody I'd given birth to 200 years ago, and she'd come back to say she'd forgiven me. So there was a moment. There was a moment where, whether you believe it or not, that's what happened. And it's kind of defined what I do because I don't want to meet her again.
I can imagine. Yeah,
I'd rather not meet that girl again. So I'm not going to say I'm a lot more cautious because I never was not cautious. But as you gain more experience, you tend to come up with more scenarios that could happen.
Yeah.
And I'd rather not meet her again. But that was falling off when I really didn't want to.
Yeah. I can imagine that such an experience makes quite an impression.
When people ask all the time, what's the best rock climb you ever did? Or the best sea stack? And my answer is always the same. It's the next one. Because to have a best experience means you're not really looking for another one. You've had your best experience. Your best experience has to be the next one out because that's what you're seeking.
That's a great mindset indeed, Jean. So is there a memorable moment with one of your clients that sticks with you? You already mentioned that you took this 80-year-old lady into a climb. Are there any other ones that has stick to you?
One of the most memorable experiences, I was paddling with a 23 I was like mid-30s, and I was paddling with a 23-year-old girl, and she was in the back of the dinghy. We'd walked about an hour and a half along the cliff tops. We descended onto a storm beach, and we paddled out about a kilometre along the coast. So we're in one of the most remote, isolated places in Ireland, in a 5-foot inflatable dinghy, and the two of us at the base of a 1,000-foot cliff, which runs for about 14 kilometres. Not really inescapable, but certainly incredibly difficult to get out of. Yeah. And as we're paddling towards the stack, we had about 500 meters to go, and a killer whale, an orca, breached about 20 foot from the boat.
Oh, wow.
And it just breached very gently. And then about 2 seconds, maybe a minute later, it breached again, and I locked eyes. Me and the girl locked eyes with this orca. And that was a moment prior to having phones, prior to having GoPro, prior to social media, that I'm glad I didn't share, because it was a moment where I don't think orcas in Ireland are incredibly rare. And to be within 20 foot of one is even rarer in a small inflatable dinghy at the base of a 1,000-foot cliff. It's moments like that you seek, and when you find them, you cannot forget them.
I totally get what you're saying. You know, it's you can't be more one with nature than at such moments, right? There's like a mutual respect to each other, and yeah, that will make definitely a lasting memory.
Well, I don't remember climbing the stack that day.
Exactly. Nice. So what are your plans for the future with regards to your business or your sea stack climbing?
I'm in a place for the business where I'm pretty much operating at capacity. I don't want to get any bigger. Well, I can't get any bigger because there's not enough days in the year. I'm not going to take on trainees to do what I do because it takes far too long. Somebody else will work it out for themselves and will ideally start doing what I'm doing at some point. But my plan is just to continue having fun.
Nice. And probably educate your son as well, Luke.
That is a given. I'm going to be very cautious with him and get him to perhaps to take over my business in the future. But if he doesn't and he has a lot of fun, then it doesn't really matter. Exactly.
Nice. John, it's incredibly inspiring to listen to your story, and I know, but I'm afraid that we could talk for hours about this, right? So, if there's any piece of advice or tip or little piece of wisdom you would like to share with the audience with regards to following their passion as well, what would it be?
Well, that's quite simple. If you find in life what it is you have the most fun doing, and as long as it doesn't hurt yourself or hurt other people, then you can do that for a living. And if I can make sea stack climbing into a business, then anybody can make anything they enjoy doing into their business. Now, one of the pieces of advice I would give, and it's quite important that when you start out to follow your passion, almost everybody that you share your idea with will tell you that it's not a good idea. And I've heard it so many times from so many people, that's not going to work, that's not going to work. But they don't know. They don't know what it is you know, and they don't know what it is you do. They have an idea, and everybody will give you advice based on their experiences. So following your passion for a while at the start, it's quite difficult because nobody thinks it's going to work, and nobody will tell you it's a good idea. So it's a case of just continue. As long as you're having fun, just continue what you're doing.
Nice. No, great advice. And it also, I had an interview with another entrepreneur, and she said that sometimes people are afraid of following their passion because when it becomes work, they won't like it anymore. But I think that's the wrong definition of work, right? You're doing what you love to do, and people are willing to pay for that. That's a totally different mindset.
I never work.
Exactly.
300 days of the year, I never work. I'm out doing. if you take your passion and you make it into a job, my view is you've missed the point of what you're doing. You don't make your passion into a job. You share your passion with other people. And if it becomes work, then stop doing it.
Exactly. Nice ending, John. So if people want to know more about you or your business or want to work with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Best thing to go is go to the website, uniqueascent.ie, and just have a look about and see what it is I'm doing. And if it's something they think would be a good idea to do, give me a shout.
Perfect. So thanks again, John. I feel honored to have you on my show. We had a great talk. I wish you all the best. Say hi to Luke as well, and keep up the passion. And let's keep in touch. I hope you liked this episode. Make sure to check out the other episodes because each one is filled with interesting and inspiring stories and energy. Are you following your passion as well and make a good living out of it? Contact me and you could be my next guest. Would you like to follow your passion but are not there yet? Check out my website millionaireLifeStrategy.com and book an appointment to discover what I could do for you. Don't forget to share the podcast with your friends so that they get inspired as well.